From right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GBNews family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GBNews.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like.
Absolutely.
On Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also a newbie, co-founder of The Momentum and former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. Smile, James, crikey. It's Saturday, smile, mate. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 4:01. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. New messages involving Matt Hancock reveal how the former Health Secretary scrambled to save his job after footage of him emerged embracing his colleague Gina Colandangelo during lockdown. The pictures clearly showed Hancock breaking social distancing rules. Now, a string of messages published in the Daily Telegraph illustrate how Hancock explored a series of explanations to justify his behaviour in an attempt to manage the crisis and save his career. Hancock initially wanted to claim no rules were broken before deciding to apologise for breaking lockdown guidance. Almost 2 days later, he resigned. Boris Johnson is facing fresh pressure after a report suggests breaches of COVID rules in Downing Street would have been obvious to him at the time. The Commons Privileges Committee investigating his conduct during Partygate believe the former Prime Minister may have misled Parliament at least 4 times. Mr Johnson says it was his belief all guidance had been followed. Former Special Advisor to Michael Gove, Charlie Rowley, told us Partygate is still a distraction for the government, who should be focusing on what really matters.
This is why, on the back of the inquiry that published their pre-report yesterday, on the back of messages that we're seeing leaked to the Telegraph that involved the former Health Secretary and the appointment of Sue Gray to the Labour Party as Chief of Staff to Sir Keir Starmer, I think this is why Labour will be happy for the country to be talking about Partygate again, because it is a distraction from allowing the government to tell the public and to deliver on what really matters to people, and that's education in the health service. It's stopping the small boats. It's getting the economy back on track.
Well, on the subject of small boats, the government's expected to announce new laws next week to crack down on those boats crossing the Channel. It's thought the new legislation will involve disallowing asylum claims from those who travel to the UK on small boats, as well as banning migrants from returning once removed. The Prime Minister has vowed to stop the boats as one of his 5 priorities. Charity Age UK has urged the government to step in. As it says, thousands of elderly people have died as a result of not receiving proper care. Figures from NHS England show almost 29,000 requests for people aged 65 and above to be given support in 2021, the year 2021 to 22. They were in fact recorded as having died without any services being provided. The charity says the figures amount to over 500 deaths per week. The Health Department says it's providing up to £7.5 billion of funding over the next 2 years to support adult social care. Ukrainian forces defending Bakhmut, the eastern city, are facing further pressure from Russia with intense fighting in and around Bakhmut. The Ministry of Defence says resupply routes out of the town are increasingly limited, with 2 key bridges in Bakhmut destroyed over the last 36 hours. The MOD says whilst Ukraine's defence is reinforcing the area, the Russian army, alongside the Wagner group of mercenaries, have made further advances into the city's northern suburbs. And the UK is in for a cold snap next week, with temperatures expected to drop below freezing. Monday and Tuesday we'll see lows of -3 in Scotland and -2 in the northwest and east of England. Yellow weather warnings are in place from early Monday to late on Tuesday. That's for snow and ice across northern Scotland and north-east England. The Met Office says the conditions are likely to cause some disruption to travel as well as power outages. And the holy oil used to anoint the king during his coronation in May will be vegan-friendly. It's been made with olives and scented with rose and cinnamon with no animal ingredients. It's also been made sacred in a ceremony in Jerusalem. The anointing of the new monarch will take place under a canopy at Westminster Abbey on the 6th of May, along with a coronation ceremony during which the king will be crowned. This is GB News. More as it happens. Now let's return to Nana.
Good afternoon. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. It's fast approaching 6 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Is this what we've got to look forward to from our politicians?
What I find unacceptable, though, is some of those who've got legitimate objections joining hands with some of those outside who are part of a far-right group who are... Some of those outside, let's be frank, let's call a spade a spade. Some of those outside are part of the far right, some are COVID deniers, some are vaccine deniers, and some are Tories.
Yes, Sadiq Khan calling people, the public, that he serves far-right for disagreeing with his ULEZ plans. The contempt with which he holds the public, extraordinary. And decisions like this from Sir Keir Starmer, who has, in my view, ill-judgedly appointed Sue Gray, whose words back in the COVID days were seen as impartial, to a top job in the Labour Party. And now as the politicians from all sides fight amongst themselves to lay blame for the wrongdoings of the pandemic, many putting it firmly with Boris, they appear to have forgotten that it was, in fact, civil servants who attended these rule-breaking gatherings. Civil servants who led us to believe that they are impartial until the likes of Sue Gray, who is also in charge of ethics, revealed her allegiance. Shocking. And instead of leaving things like Partygate, where I believe it belongs, with public interest only when the results are known, and instead of focusing on the cost of energy, the food shortages, channel crossings, the contents of Rishi's deal with Ursula the Pussy von der Leyen, Pussycat even, sorry, excuse me, it's just Pussycat Eyes, just so you know. Yes, and the self-induced poverty policy of net zero, which will remind us that neither party has a good enough solution. The political classes, aided by the established media, James O'Brien, and journalist Isabel Oakeshott, who has never made a secret of her dislike of lockdowns, want to remind us of just how angry we should be over the contempt with which the politicians hold us, the general public, in, and treat this as though it were a new discovery. Well, I've got news for you all. To all politicians, the public are not stupid. We are sick of this race to the bottom and an absence of coherent policies. It is getting extremely tedious. Every time there appears to be some sort of progress, we all get dragged back to schoolyard bullying and childish party politics. I'm fed up of listening to whether Boris knowingly misled the House. I'm bored of it. How can Keir Starmer even believe he holds any moral high ground after the lies it was proven he told surrounding Beergate? Angela wasn't there, then she was. I've met Angela, you'll know she's there. She's a force of nature. And the one about a small impromptu gathering, a memo proved otherwise. How he was cleared is beyond me. And now poaching the COVID inquiry 50 Shades of Grey Sue, whose son is an active Labour Party member. It's also been reported that the lawyer appointed to give her legal advice called Labour MPs who backed Brexit mugs and accused the Tories of serving up bile. And according to the Daily Mail, he posted an online message which branded Boris Johnson a reckless and dangerous, and in his post stated, "If you trust Johnson, you're a mug." If this is the case, why was a clear Remain supporting barrister given such a politically sensitive post? As interesting as all this is, it should not, in my view, hog the spotlight. Why is diesel so expensive? What are Ofgem doing? What about water companies? Somewhere hidden in the distraction was a story about drought, which is no doubt largely caused by leakages and lack of investment. Surely our very life source is more important. But oh no, let's talk about Sue Gray, what's up, etc. Yes, I get that people lost loved ones and the rules were a disgrace, but it's nothing that we didn't already know. By all means, punish those who have direct involvement with malpractice, but can we please focus on what's important? The party is now over. I was going to say, and so is my voice. Right, before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are Matt Hancock's leaked messages in the public interest? Do you care? From failing to test residents during the pandemic to Matt Hancock scrambling to save his career after his affair was exposed. And today, the revelation that he was highly critical of Rishi Sunak. Over 100,000 leaked WhatsApp messages have highlighted issues with the way the government handled the pandemic. But do you care? Then at 4:50, it's Royal Roundup. Prince Andrew's former flame, Lady Victoria Hervey, and royal biographer Angela Levin will be live in the studio to give all the latest from behind the palace walls. King Charles has asked the Duke and Duchess of Sussex to vacate Frogmore, their residence in the UK, amid rumours that the property was offered to the disgraced Prince Andrew. Then stay tuned at 5, this week's difficult conversation. I'll be speaking to a woman who survived a violent attack by her partner, but her 16-year-old son tragically took his own life after the attack. That's coming up in the next hour. As ever, tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also co-founder of Momentum and former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. Smile, James.
Come on, James.
I'm going to start with you, Lizzie, so we can warm up. Lizzie, what do you think? I'm bored of hearing this Partygate. I don't want us to go into that cycle, the vortex of nothingness.
No. I don't want to hear about Partygate. Partygate. That's all Keir Starmer kept saying, didn't he? I got so sick of it, and I'm sick of it now. And it's just Keir Starmer's doing this, and I think the reason why he's got Sue Gray on board is to distract from allowing the government to deal with the real issues that are going on: the high cost of living, education, immigration. Because he knows Partygate is going to make everyone rethink it all and bring the Tories down. Me, for one, I don't want to think about it anymore. I'm sick of hearing about it, and I think many other people are as well.
It's irresponsible. James?
Well, I agree that most of what gets spoken about in Westminster, most of what gets spoken about in the media has very little to do with people's real lives and the things that we should actually be talking about. So the main thrust of what you're saying, I actually agree with. I think we should be politics should focus on the fact that this government's been in power now for, 13 years. Well over 300,000 people died through excess deaths linked to austerity, their policies. We've got the biggest fall in standard of living in the history of the UK. There's a whole litany of problems, some of which you read out about our rivers, our water. These things, of course, should be the focus. And Westminster and our media don't really like to talk about those things, because to talk about those things, either you have to have solutions, and currently neither of the two parties have this idea that the government should just be focusing on these things. They don't have any policies to deal with any of that stuff. And Keir Starmer doesn't have any policies to deal with any of that stuff, so they don't really want to talk about it. And the reason why the media loves to talk about Partygate and this kind of bubbly nonsense is because people who work in politics, in media in politics, they don't know about things. The thing that they do know about is they've got the phone number of someone else who works in politics. So they're very good at telling you this personality has done this and this person doesn't like this person, but basically nothing about cost of living, austerity, housing,
just to
water,
remind you,
any of those things
on your
that you would
comments
be
on
interested in.
austerity, I mean, the Labour Party did hand a very, very bad situation to the Conservative Party. Let's be frank. But yeah, I think
coffers are empty, wasn't it? That Gordon Brown said.
Nothing left.
Yeah, but let me
Gordon
ask...
Brown didn't say that. And
what did he say? What
was his words?
Well, you're thinking about Liam Byrne, who was wrong, who did say there's no money left.
OK, still Labour Party, though, but Labour...
Sure. I mean, I'm not I'm not a huge defender of New Labour either. You won't be surprised to hear. But austerity was, of course, completely counterproductive, as in it was bad for the economy. It involved a huge handout to big businesses, massive tax cuts in corporation tax. And the result was... the economy didn't grow, living standards fell, and the public services are cut. So now you look at where are people now? Where are most people now in the country? After 13 years, your pay is lower than it was in median terms than in 2005, and the public services are worse.
Well, hang on, what about Sue
And
Gray?
bills are higher.
What about Sue Gray?
So now you want to talk about Sue Gray, not
why has Keir Starmer... wanting Sue Gray. What are the reasons?
That's what I want to know.
Because he knows this is going to spark a massive thing, and we'll have to go back to Partygate. But what he's done is shot himself in the foot. He's so stupider than I thought he was. Because what he's done is shot himself in the foot, because everyone's thinking now, this is not, this is biased. She's supposed to be impartial. She's supposed to be neutral. That's what civil servants are supposed to be. She certainly isn't. And I agree with Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Apparently she may well be.
Well,
I'd say it's quite difficult for her to do that, because it seems her son is into the Labour Party, which that wouldn't sway someone. But then the person the person who advised her is also somebody who hates the Tories by all accounts. The reports in the different papers, like the Mirror and also the Daily Mail, which reported the comments that he apparently made on things like Twitter.
Yeah.
So it just seems that this was stacked against Boris Johnson. I mean,
exactly.
And I'm sick of hearing it.
And I'm sorry, I smell a rat here. I really do smell a rat. And Jacob Rees-Mogg said something that I totally agree with. There should be an inquiry into Sue Gray on their relationship and how long it's been going on.
On the one hand, you've heard too
Starmer.
much about it, but on the other hand, you want to have another inquiry into the inquiry.
No,
because it's not fair, because it's
But my point about the inquiries is that you can do that, but it doesn't take the highlight of all the press.
Right.
So you do the inquiries, you do these things, but I don't want to focus on it. So I don't want to hear about it. I want to hear when the results of Partygate and the inquiries are done. You can tell me the results. But in the meantime, I want you to deal with the cost of living. I want you to deal with the migrant crisis. I want to hear that. I want to carry on with that.
But it's not going to happen, unfortunately. I agree with you. It's not going to happen because it's not in the interest of the editors of newspapers, Keir Starmer, or really the government to focus on any particular aspect of the crisis. It isn't in the government's interest because it's made the various crises that we live in.
It's totally against the government. It will bring the Tories down. That's what Keir Starmer wants, talking and bringing up Partygate again. Because it's a distraction from what is really going on in this country, the real issues.
Yeah, I just think also if you focus on the real issues, it looks terrible for the government. His record is much worse than Boris Johnson had a few parties and then didn't tell the truth about it in Parliament. That is really not very big deal in comparison to the over 300,000 people, excess deaths from austerity. That's a real thing that really matters. Yeah, should he, did he lie? Did he go to parties when he shouldn't have done? Was he making rules and then not following them? Yeah, sure, that's bad, but I'm saying if you were to focus on the real issues, that would be so much worse for the government.
Yeah, but we could do that on all governments. I have to say, this government Tory has really totally let so many of us down. But look at Tony Blair. I mean, he took us to war on a lie, to over $8 billion in blood and treasure. I mean, if we want to go through all the governments of previous, Labour haven't been too good either.
No,
but this is Partygate. Keir Starmer is just a distraction. This is what he wants. It's what he's doing. But he's shot himself in the foot because now no one is believing this inquiry because it's totally...
How's he shot? You just said that on the one hand, it's how he's going to win the election because it's going to bring the Tories down, and also he's shot himself in the foot.
Because he's shot himself in the foot by bringing in Gray. Because Sue Gray is supposed to be impartial, neutral, and it's now making everyone question it, the inquiry.
Well, the other side of it is, in a way, he's shot himself in the foot, but then he kind of wants to distract from the fact that he has no policies. So it's like... Yeah. And then the Tory party also want to distract the fact that they don't have any real policies. They're not doing anything either. And what I'm saying is, we've actually had enough of this. I would like them to, do your inquiries, put them to one side where they belong, but I don't want the media to be focusing on this circus anymore. I've had enough. The next debate we will discuss the WhatsApp messages, by the way.
Yeah, you should have a look at some of yours. Yeah, it just goes on and on. What a week, I tell you.
I know. Well, listen, stay tuned. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, it's time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, are Matt Hancock's leaked messages in the public interest? Over 100,000 leaked WhatsApp messages have revealed the way the former Health Secretary handled the pandemic. But do we have a right to know his private thoughts? I don't know whether I want to. At 5, it's this week's difficult conversation. I'll be speaking to an absolutely inspirational woman who survived a violent attack by her partner and also lost her 16-year-old son, who tragically took his life after the attack. As ever, I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything we're discussing. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tell me what you think. You can also tweet at GBNews. I've got a poll up right now asking, are Matt Hancock's leaked messages in the public interest? Cast your vote now. Back in a short moment.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel. Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 24 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, before the break, we're discussing all the drama behind Partygate, Partygate, Partygate. Let's have a look at what you've been saying. Average says, gotta love you, Nana. Your monologues are always so true and brilliantly to the point. Thank you so much. Alisa says, I've had enough of this Partygate business. There are more pressing matters. Lynn said, well said, Nana. Get in there, girl. You speak for the majority of the people. Keep up the good work. Thank you, thank you. Right, now it's time for our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, are Matt Hancock's leaked messages in the public interest? Now, at least 100,000 messages sent between the former Health Secretary Matt Hancock and senior government figures during the height of the coronavirus pandemic have been made public. Now, from failing to test residents, from entering care homes to those dreaded or so-called lockdowns, although some people quite enjoyed them. I don't know, there's a couple of them at the beginning I didn't mind. Now more of his messages have been leaked, specifically the 41-hour scramble to save his career after his affair was exposed in the press. He was also highly critical of the current Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. And now the spotlight is back on Matt Hancock. So do these messages affect your opinion of him? Or do you think that we have the right to know? For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are the leaked messages in the public interest? So joining me to discuss this, former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire, former Conservative Minister and MEP Anne Widdecombe, and former Director of Car 26 Lois Perry, and Communications Officer of the IEA Reem Ibrahim. Right, well, I'm going to start immediately with you, Anne Widdecombe. What do you think, Anne? Do we need to know all this? Is it relevant?
Well, what appalls me is the way that it came into the public domain. I mean, it was given freely to somebody who was cooperating with him on a book, and that person decided to make them public. Now, most of the controversies that are there, for example, care homes, we already know anyway. And I don't think we needed to know his opinion of Rishi Sunak. I think most of us could have deduced that. But to get all this through what was effectively a series of private exchanges is, to my mind, is just plain dishonourable. I mean, when I say we shouldn't know, I don't mean I want it all hush-hush. I mean, I don't want it exposed this way.
Let's go to you, Lois Perry.
Yeah, I must say, I do agree with Anne Widdecombe that the way that these messages came out was, it was a little bit naughty of Isabel Oakeshott to do that. Obviously, there is a great degree of trust between a biographer and the subject, or autobiographer and subject. But I do think that they are in the public interest. I really do. I mean, we now know that this was nothing to do with science and everything to do with politics. And I think the majority of people are actually more concerned about the weight of the state in terms of their impact and in terms of their strength and what they're able to do, that they're able to take away people's freedoms and liberties like that, based not on science, but actually based on political expediency. And I think that's the scary thing.
Let's go to Scarlett Maguire.
I mean, they're definitely in the public interest, because I think we have a right to know exactly what was going on at the top when we were being locked down, when we were being given incredible rules. What's so incredible about today's revelations, I mean, the others are bad enough, is that somehow Matt Hancock thought that having an affair with a woman that he had hired at some expense, taxpayers, we were paying for his lover to be in a non-executive director Department of Health. He thought that was okay, while masses and masses of people could not see their girlfriends and boyfriends, right, were absolutely obeying the law. It was what it absolutely crystallised is that for them there was one law for them and another for us.
Maybe I didn't actually keep the rules. Reem, what do you think? I don't
think any of us kept to the rules 100%, because it was impossible to do so, wasn't it? I mean, I was a student at the time of lockdown. I'll be completely honest in telling you I didn't keep to all of the rules because it's impossible to do so. And I think that's what we saw with Matt Hancock. But look, we have a right to know what happened, and we're supposed to know through the £85 million taxpayer-funded COVID inquiry that we're supposed to have the results of at some point. We don't know. We'll probably end up getting the results after all these people are no longer MPs anyway, so that'll be a complete waste of £85 million of taxpayer money. But look, I think that we don't have a right to Matt Hancock's WhatsApp messages. I don't think that is in the public's interest. We haven't really learned anything new from these text messages. We know that he was advised in different ways, like every government minister is. He chose a particular way, a way forward down with the care homes. He chose a particular way forward. He has different opinions on the teachers' unions, but we didn't necessarily learn anything new. So I think it's a complete breach of his own privacy. And whilst we have a right to know what those decisions were when they took our freedom phones away for so long. We don't necessarily have a right to his WhatsApp messages.
Well, look, as you said, the inquiry cost millions, and the inquiry is not the thing that revealed the WhatsApp messages.
And they won't.
No. Well, that's the thing. So it's kind of like And do you think that this whole sort of inquiry into COVID is actually value for money for the taxpayer?
Well, I think we needed an inquiry into COVID. I don't know that we need all this nonsense now over the text messages. I mean, we know he had an affair. We know he broke the law. We know all these things. You know, nothing new under the sun in these WhatsApp messages. But I do think that in the cold light of day, we need to look at whether we actually should ever have had, and I said this at the time, so it's not the wisdom of hindsight, universal lockdowns. I mean, I maintained from the start that we should lock down the seriously vulnerable, and we should tell everybody else it was their duty to keep the economy going. It was a nonsense to disrupt young people's education in the way that it was disrupted when they were the least likely to suffer from COVID. And I think we should have all been treated as grown-ups, and we should have been told your duty is to try and avoid spreading COVID, but not minutely prescribe the way that we should do that. And I mean, I'm one of those who used my own judgment throughout, and I used it very carefully. I didn't just disobey the rules because I wanted to be bullshit, and I didn't just stick rigidly to them because I wanted to do everything the silly government thing.
I must say,
I used my own judgment, and
I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. But we have learnt some things from the WhatsApp messages. For example, we learnt that the main reason that they masked our children, which has set our children back so much in terms of their academic and personal and emotional and psychological development, and that's just a fact, was so as not to cause a row with Nicola Sturgeon. I mean, that's come out in the WhatsApp messages. It's come out in the WhatsApp messages that Ava the scientist and Boris Johnson were saying to Matt Hancock, you know, people had a choice between having a tiny percentage chance of dying, and I'm talking about the elderly here, or the economy thriving, or being able to hug their loved ones, that they would have gone for, you know, this very small risk. So it has come out that there, as much as I don't think the way that it did come out is correct, I think it was a bit duplicitous of her to do it the way she did. We have learnt a lot from these text messages.
Do you think, Scarlett Maguire, you've got about 30 seconds.
I think it shows that actually the people at the top were holding the rest of us in contempt, and they. I mean, I don't think anybody here obeyed all the rules. I caught COVID at my mother's funeral, but I mean, I do think it's really important that we remember that they put in rules that they don't obey.
Well, they put in rules that were ridiculous, and actually, I think were impossible to obey. Scarlett Maguire, thank you very much for joining me. Lewis Perry, nice to talk to you. Anne Widdecombe, and also Reem Ibrahim. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Right, this is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. In a statement, Mr Hancock said this: I am hugely disappointed and sad at the massive betrayal. Sorry, just having a sip of my tea. That's not in there. I'm hugely disappointed and sad at the massive betrayal and breach of trust by Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel Oakeshott, I am also sorry for the impact on the very many people, political colleagues, civil servants and friends who worked hard with me to get through the pandemic and save lives. There is absolutely no public interest case for this huge breach. All the materials for the book have already been made available to the inquiry, which is the right and only place for everything to be considered properly and the right lessons to be learned. As we have seen, releasing them in this way gives a partial, biased account to suit an anti-lockdown agenda. Right, well, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, we'll continue with our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, are Matt Hancock's leaked messages in the public interest? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel of broadcasters and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also co-founder of Momentum and former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
It's 32 minutes past 4. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. New messages involving the former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, show him reacting to footage of him and his colleague Gina Colandangelo caught embracing during lockdown. The leaked WhatsApp messages, reading "How bad are the photos?" were sent by Matt Hancock hours after he discovered pictures of him breaching social distancing rules had been published. The messages also show him discussing COVID guidance in place at the time and how he should respond to the media as he scrambled to try and save his career. The correspondence is among more than 100,000 messages obtained by the Daily Telegraph. Boris Johnson may be facing a fight to save his political career following the findings of a report into Partygate. The Commons Privileges Committee investigating his conduct say there's significant new evidence that Johnson misled MPs over lockdown parties on several occasions, and it would have been obvious that to him and his colleagues that they were breaking the rules. Mr Johnson says it was his belief all guidance had been followed. The government's expected to announce new laws next week to crack down on small boats crossing the channels. It's thought the new legislation will involve disallowing asylum claims from those who travel to the UK on small boats, as well as banning migrants from returning once removed. The Prime Minister's vowed to stop the boats as one of his 5 priorities. And the holy oil used to anoint the king during his coronation in May will be vegan-friendly. It has been made with olives and scented with rose and cinnamon, with no animal ingredients. It's also been made sacred in a ceremony in Jerusalem. The anointing of the new monarch will take place at Westminster Abbey on May the 6th, along with a coronation ceremony, during which the king will be crowned. TV online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it is back to Nana.
Stay with us on GB News. Lots more to come, including at 5. I'll be speaking with a woman who survived a violent attack by her partner, but then had to endure the loss of her 16-year-old son, who took his own life. Back with you after this.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 39 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is a GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now it's time for our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are Matt Hancock's leaked messages in the public interest? Now, at least 100,000 messages sent between the former health secretary and senior government figures during the height of the coronavirus pandemic have been made public, courtesy of Isabel Oakeshott. And now more of his messages have been revealed, specifically the 41-hour scramble to save his career after his affair was exposed. Now, the spotlight is on Matt Hancock once again. Do these messages, do you think, affect your opinion of him, or was it so low that it couldn't have sunk any lower? Or perhaps you didn't really care in the first instance? Are we wrong to be scrutinising him after this has gone on? This is years ago. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are Matt Hancock's leaked messages in the public interest? Let's see what my panel make of that. Joining me, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also co-founder of Momentum and former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. James,
I love the way you said his surname.
I can say that. James, so what do you think then? This is, do we care? Is it in our interest to know about this?
Definitely the stuff about care homes, government contracts and corruption, that's totally in the public interest, and that's extremely good that that's out there. I don't care about stuff to do with his relationship with his former aide and how he scrambled to save his career or whatever. I'm not particularly interested in that stuff. And also his proximity to George Osborne and getting Osborne to put what he wanted on the front page of the Evening Standard. That is definitely public interest. It allows people to see what people are doing on their behalf, people in power, and that is a good thing.
What do you think?
Well, it's like dumber and dumber when you just don't think Matt Hancock can get any more dumb. I mean, really, handing all your WhatsApp messages over to a journalist. Hello.
Well, she did sign an NDA.
She did, but it was a bog-standard one that wasn't worth the paper it was written on, apparently, according to Isabel. And literally, I don't really know many journalists who would have all of that information that would just say, OK, I'll keep it to myself. I mean, oh, my word, how stupid is this man? I'm really sorry, Matt Hancock. I'm absolutely... But you know what? I do think it's in the public interest.
I think it's in the public interest for us to know quite how stupid he is.
Well, it is. It is. And he was governing us. I mean, he was controlling us through the pandemic. I mean, I remember walking through Hampstead Heath with a friend and sitting on a bench, and the COVID cops came and told us, saying, do not sit on the bench, and all of these mad rules. Yes, but and he said, go in hard. If you look at the messages, which are absolutely appalling. And it does pull the curtain on what goes on with the MPs throughout all of this. And I do think it's in the public interest. As we just heard, look what happened at education. Look what happened...
Yeah, but of all people, Isabel Oakeshott, right?
I mean, that is what makes it even more true. Isabel Oakeshott has a track record of working with somebody and then later working against them. So it really shouldn't be a huge surprise that, let's say, 2 months ago or 3 months ago, whenever it was, she was there with Matt Hancock at the launch of the book. Here we are, smiling, photos taken together, and then is absolutely knifing him.
Yeah, but hasn't she got a track record?
But there's a track record because Vicky Price, who was Chris Huhne's husband, she worked with her, and then there was, and then that was part of the story of how Vicky Price ended up in prison. And then also she did the bad boys of Brexit, and there was something with Aaron Banks and the former ambassador to the US, and some of that ended up in the press as well. So you think, am I going to give all of my stuff to a journalist? No, don't do that. Am I then going to give it to someone with a track record of doing this sort of thing, who disagrees with my basic policy?
I'll tell you who would. Yeah. Matt Hancock. Yeah. The snake always bites. How stupid are you, Matt? I mean, unbelievable. But he's pulling everyone down with him. The only one that has come out of, kind of good out of this, is Boris Johnson, who was actually, saying, do we have to do these lockdowns? And was questioning it, if you look through them.
Well, Boris also said that he didn't think that he was breaking the rules, though, because he wasn't really sure of what the rules were, in a way. I suspect that was his
That
rule.
is a bit embarrassing.
No,
if you're the Prime Minister, you don't know the rules.
No, I don't think it is, because remember the rule of 6? You can have 6 people from different households meeting you at the pub, but then those 6 people can't come back into your house. And then, but then you have to have then.
Yeah, no.
These rules. Do you remember the one? Do you remember the one where somebody could bring you a drink with a mask and everything? And when it came for the money, you could.
Yeah, it was like you don't drink alcohol.
All right, no, that stuff was all very. Yeah, that was all difficult to follow. Sure, but then why set up the rules like that? And he was the Prime Minister, and Matt Hancock was the Health Secretary. They are responsible for what the rules were.
But they were making the rules and breaking them. And sadly, Matt Hancock, I know you didn't like. You're not bothered about him and the clench.
Yeah.
I am, because I wasn't allowed to do that. We were told we weren't.
But none of them clearly knew the rules. And if you're sensible like you or I, you broke the ones that were obviously stupid. Like, for example, the support bubble. You could have people in your support bubble. My support bubble was massive.
Look,
I'm going to go back to your opening monologue, because I really agree with it, and say the thing that we should be focusing, again, is not the rules, it's not these complicated things of who was exactly doing what at what time, but the key things, right, which we already knew, basically, and we know a bit more now from these WhatsApps. Care homes were left unbelievably vulnerable. People weren't tested in, despite that being the medical advice.
But we knew that.
And sure, but I'm saying we should focus on that, because deliberate government policy led to the avoidable deaths of tens of thousands of people.
Agreed.
There's that, which we should focus on. That's something that we should learn, because there might be another public health emergency.
But we're just saying lessons to be learned from this. One big lesson we need to learn is not be governed by an egotistical plonker.
But the problem is we don't realise they are that until they prove they are. And it's only when these sort of things get exposed that we realise that. But the bottom line is, whilst they're pushing this into plain sight so that we keep looking at something that we mostly already know, things like Rishi Sunak's deal with Ursula von der Leyen, somebody's going to the detail now. I want to hear parts of the detail. You know, what are they going to do with regard to the Channel and the migrants crossing? I would like them to keep focused on that. You know, what about the fact that the energy companies, sorry, I'm not finished, haven't actually, I haven't really paid much of the tax, the so-called windfall tax. That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, the real big issues.
What are his actual policies? They're not talking about it.
Well, Keir Starmer always sits on the fence. We don't know his real policies, do we? I'm really sorry we don't. And I just think this is all playing into his hands, because this is what he wants. He wants a distraction from the real issues that are going on. He wants this because it will bring down the Tories.
I do think that things like the illegal contracts, Matt Hancock was found to have been issuing contracts against the law, and there was no real issue was taken up with them.
We already know about
the opposition didn't really go for him over it at all. Starmer said he shouldn't resign. The media didn't really go for him. I'm not saying this is new because of the WhatsApps, but if we're going to be looking at this period of what went terribly wrong, because we're living in the aftermath of it now, should we have handed out basically £700 billion to richer people? No, we probably shouldn't. Should the Bank of England have done quantitative easing the way it did? The former governor of the Bank of England says not. I would say not, because of how much it increased wealth inequality. It was a bad policy. These are things that we should talk about.
Yeah, but it all feels like they're all in cahoots. That's what it feels like. So the more you read it, irrespective of what party they're in, they are all vested interests all over.
And the lesson is, don't give away your WhatsApp messages.
Not to Isabel Oakeshott, anyway. Right, the show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voices, your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you think about the topics we're discussing. I've got 4 today. Let's start with Lee Harris from Bristol. Lee, what do you think? Oh, I can hear myself. Lee, turn down what it is. You're not using that.
I initially thought it was going out of order from a journalistic ethics point of view, but after seeing...
No, Lee, stop. I can hear myself back. Is there something? Turn it down on your computer. Turn it down.
I'm not sure it's me, actually.
Oh, that's better.
I haven't got any sound on.
It's good now. OK, go for it.
Yeah, good. OK.
Yeah, it's good.
Initially, I thought it was bang out of order from a journalistic ethics point of view. But after seeing some of the WhatsApp messages, it's extremely hard not to view them in the public interest. So on balance, and irrespective of her personal motives, I think Isabel Oakeshott was right. I think something of this magnitude needs as much sunlight as possible. And I want and hope these WhatsApp messages directly influence the inquiry and help explain why they made the decisions they did without the spin. But what it does show is the government was being heavily influenced by public opinion, quite a bit of dodgy modelling, and Boris was desperate not to lock us down, unlike Hancock, who comes out of this debacle looking even worse than he already did. This is why I believe it's in the public interest. But, seeing it play out on WhatsApp, it makes me even more angry now that the majority of MSN were constantly pushing for harder, longer lockdowns and restrictions which had a direct impact on the decision making.
Yeah,
there were absolutely no rational questions being asked by the media, and those on the sidelines that did were called lockdown deniers and COVID skeptics. You know, it was a diabolical situation from start to finish.
Well, I'd agree with that. Right, let's go to David Baum. He's there in Watford. David, what's your thoughts? David.
Most politicians are a slice short of a picnic when it comes to intelligence, because why allow a journalist to see your private messages without a 100% lockdown NDA? You know, you can't go into these sort of things. But it has so important that we suddenly we realise it was everything that was being done was being driven by public debate, and the minority was screaming about masks, regardless of the scientific fact. And we now need to make sure that lessons are really learned, and that in moving forward, if this ever happens again, they say, hold a minute, stop. What are the facts?
Well, you stop right there. Let's go to Jonathan Jones of Tregotham Tea. Jonathan, what's your view? You've got about 30 seconds.
No, I think it's a fantastic, great news for the Telegraph. I hope their sales are booming. When we first grew tea in this country 20 years ago, the Daily Telegraph carried a tea story on their front page every 17 days. I hope they do brilliantly out of the Hancock story. I think it's brilliant. Transparency is what we need.
All right, Jonathan Jones, thank you so much. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is at GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, royal biographer Angela Levin and socialite lady Victoria Hervey will be in studio to talk all things palace related, and then stay tuned at 5 is this week's Difficult Conversation. I'll be speaking to an inspirational woman who survived a violent attack from her partner, but then had to endure the loss of a 16-year-old son through suicide. Stay tuned, that is on the way.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, good afternoon. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. We are the People's Channel. Now, there is always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. Prince Harry is set to speak to a trauma expert on live stream, and that's as King Charles has asked the Duke and Duchess of Sussex to vacate Frogmore, their residence in the UK. That's amid rumours that the property was offered to Prince Andrew. And William and Kate, took place in a furious cycling competition between one another. And every Saturday, I love to give you a rundown. Who better to do that than royal biographer Angela Levin and also socialite Lady Victoria Hervey.
Hello.
Wow.
Hi.
So what should we start? Let's start with Prince Harry's live stream. Angela, I'm going to start with you on that.
Well, people have said that he's making a big mistake to speak to this man. He's 79, and he often believes in giving addicts massive amount of illegal drugs because somehow that brings it all out and helps them. He's also one of those Jewish anti-Semites.
But are we sure about that, though? Because we have to be careful making allegations that somebody is that.
Well, many people have called him that.
Well, he's not here to
rabbis.
defend himself, though, so we'll strike that from the record just because
strike that from the record.
He's not here to defend himself.
OK. And he is, he's got some very odd ways of helping. But the thing is to see if Prince Harry sort of moans yet again and attacks his father and brother even more now that they've asked him and Meghan to leave Frogmore Cottage.
They should go. I mean, Lady Victoria, do you have any thoughts on that?
What do I think about ayahuasca?
Because Andrew might get the cottage.
Look, I mean, I think it's sort of obvious. So, you know, the first thing about Royal Lodge is only about 10 bedrooms and there is no swimming pool. So
only 10 bedrooms and no swimming pool.
But no, but every newspaper has always said, like, every newspaper I've ever, it says it's got 30 rooms and a swimming pool. So I don't know where they're getting that from. That is completely incorrect. I think it's sort of also quite obvious that this is Prince William wanting the house.
Do you think?
Of course. So that is, you know, that's a pretty obvious one. But at the end of the day, this is a conversation between the King and the Duke of York, and it's...
Hasn't it got a lot of damp, and that's why it needs to be dealt with, and he can't stay there.
But this is nothing to do
damp.
with budgets. This is William wanting the big house. He's not happy in the small one, and, you know, for Prince Andrew, like, this house is very, you know, He's been there for 20 years. It was his grandmother's house. It's very sentimental.
But it's only him,
so
isn't
why
it?
should he move?
Yeah, but most people whose children leave and establish their own lives and have their own children, nearly all of them downsize.
Well, but he has, like, his daughters and their kids, and he has, like, a lot of family at the house.
But they don't live there.
But they don't live there, do they?
But then he's got the Queen's dogs. I mean, look, this is the Queen's dying wishes were for him to stay in that house. You know, they've got her dogs, like, what? So Prince Charles just wants to, like, boot him out?
Well, I don't think you can do it for the dogs. I don't think you can keep him and let him stay there for the dogs.
I'm not saying keep the house just for the dogs, but you know... But,
yeah, but maybe the Queen also said, don't release
Frogmore,
the book.
I don't know. I think, you know, obviously they've been really tough on Harry. I'm sure he was expecting some sort of... something to happen as a result of that book.
Maybe he was supposed to not release the book. Maybe he had some sort of deal and he broke the deal.
Maybe he did.
No,
it's sad that he will no longer have a home in England.
Not really.
Well, he won't have a steady place, a base.
Yeah.
And that means that he can't possibly stay as a Councillor of State. This is a person who steps in for the monarch if they're ill or if they're away. So he can't possibly do that. And I think that's right. If he lives mainly in America, then it's of no use to do that.
Exactly.
And in any case, you couldn't give it to him. It would be inappropriate.
God, no, that'd be the end of the monarchy. I think people would just forget it. We're not going to fund this. Now, what about Camilla? What's going on with Camilla?
Well, Camilla, she has kept her word that she would stay with the charities that are very important for her. And so she is doing an awful lot about reading again and literature, which is one of her main things. And there's going to be a big festival later this year where there's going to be authors and books, and people can come and talk to all those authors, some of whom they must admire hugely. And I think it's very good that she is working incredibly hard. As soon as she felt a bit better from having COVID, she's back working hard and doing as much as she can for the country. And I think it's very impressive. And I think people are getting used to the fact that we don't have to call her Queen Consort all the time.
I was just asking Angela about that earlier, with, you know, the differences. So do you think, you know, the reason that Frogmore has been taken away, is it because Camilla was called the evil stepmother? Do you think that was the thing
yes, I think
nailed it?
We knew that there was a red line. And I think most of us, we can somehow take nastiness about ourselves. But for someone we love, it's much, much harder. And I think that to call her a villain and that she would leave people on the street and all those things. And also saying that, you know, he pleaded with his father not to marry her. Well, you know, would he listen if people pleaded with him not to marry Meghan?
I think most kids, though, you know, don't want their parent to be remarried. I think
not when they're 38.
No, when it's 38.
No, I know. But I mean, just like, you know, it hasn't happened to me. My mother didn't remarry. No, I know, but I'm just saying,
he's 38,
younger. I think for him, he's very young.
Yeah, he needs to grow up.
And he does need to grow up, yes.
Right, and also pay for himself, which is good that he is. Angela Levin, royal biographer, thank you very much. Lady Victoria, it'd be lovely to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too.
Stay with me. This is GB News. More to come in the next hour. Good afternoon, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. For the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. At 5, I'll be speaking to Rachel Williams, an inspirational survivor of abuse. You won't want to miss her story. Then for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to stop normalising obesity? But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon to you. It's 5 o'clock. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. New messages involving Matt Hancock reveal how the former Health Secretary battled to save his job after footage of him embracing colleague Gina Colandangelo emerged during lockdown. The pictures clearly showed Hancock breaking social distancing rules. A string of messages published in the Daily Telegraph illustrate how Hancock explored a series of explanations to justify his behaviour in an attempt to manage the crisis and save his career. Hancock initially wanted to claim no rules were broken before deciding to apologise for breaking lockdown guidance. Almost 2 days later, he tendered his resignation. Boris Johnson may be facing a fight to save his political career following the findings of a report into Partygate. The Commons Privileges Committee investigating his conduct say there's significant new evidence Johnson misled MPs over lockdown parties on several occasions, and it would have been obvious that he and his colleagues were breaking the rules. Mr Johnson says it was his belief all guidance was followed. Well, Charlie Rowley, a former special advisor to Michael Gove, told us Partygate is still a distraction for the government, who should be focusing on what really matters.
This is why, on the back of the inquiry that published their pre-report yesterday, on the back of messages that we're seeing leaked to the Telegraph that involved the former Health Secretary and the appointment of Sue Gray to the Labour Party as Chief of Staff to Sir Keir Starmer. I think this is why Labour will be happy for the country to be talking about Partygate again, because it is a distraction from allowing the government to tell the public and to deliver on what really matters to people, and that's education in the health service, it's stopping the small boats, it's getting the economy back on track.
New powers to crack down on small boats crossing the Channel are expected to be announced by the government next week. The legislation is expected to make asylum claims inadmissible from those who travel to the UK on small boats, as well as banning migrants from returning once removed. Those arriving on small boats would be removed as soon as reasonably practical, to Rwanda or to a safe third country. The Prime Minister has vowed to stop the boats as one of his 5 priorities. Thousands of elderly people have died as a result of not getting proper care, according to the charity Age UK. It says it's deeply concerned by NHS figures, which show almost 29,000 requests for people aged 65 and over to be given support in 2021 to 22 were recorded as them having died without those services being provided. The charity says those figures amount to almost 550 deaths per week, or 79 per day. The Health Department says it's providing up to £7.5 billion of funding over the next 2 years to support adult social care. Ukrainian forces defending Bakhmut are facing further pressure from Russia, with intense fighting in and around the eastern city. The Ministry of Defence in the UK says resupplying routes out of the town are increasingly limited, with 2 key bridges in Bakhmut having been destroyed in the last 36 hours. The MOD has tweeted that while Ukraine's defence is reinforcing the area, the Russian army, alongside the Wagner group of mercenaries, have made further advances into Bakhmut's northern suburbs. The UK is in for a cold snap next week, with temperatures expected to drop below freezing. Monday and Tuesday will see lows of -3 in Scotland and -2 in the northwest and east of England. Yellow weather warnings for snow and ice are in place from early Monday to late on Tuesday across northern Scotland and north east England. The Met Office says the conditions are likely to cause disruption to travel as well as some power outages. And the holy oil used to anoint the king during his coronation in May will be vegan friendly. It's been made with olives and scented with rose and cinnamon with no animal ingredients. It's also been made sacred in a ceremony in Jerusalem. Now, the anointing of the new monarch will take place at Westminster Abbey on May the 6th, along with a coronation ceremony where the king will be crowned. This is GB News, more as it happens, but now it's back to Nana.
Good afternoon. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. Joining me today is broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, also co-founder of Momentum, James Schneider. Still to come, it's my difficult conversation. Rachel Williams will be joining me live in the studio. She'll be talking us through her experience at the hands of her husband after being shot by him more than a decade ago. She now uses her pain to help spread awareness to others going through the same situation. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to stop normalising obesity? Nearly 1 billion of the Earth's population currently suffer with obesity. And according to reports, half of the world is on track to be obese by 2035. That's according to a study. With the media seeing the surge of body positivity movements, should we be praising and normalising obese people when their weight could be actively affecting their health? Email your thoughts, gbviews, gbnews.uk, or tweet me at gbnews. And now it's time for this week's difficult conversation. Rachel Williams is a leading advocate in the campaign against domestic violence. She endured 18 years of abuse in 2011. She tried to leave her husband, and 6 weeks later, he shot her at her workplace. Her husband subsequently died by suicide. She then spent 6 weeks in hospital recovering from her injuries. But 3 days after Rachel was discharged from hospital, her 16-year-old son, Jake, took his own life. Rachel is now the founder of Stand Up to Abuse and has changed the sector, spreading awareness, sharing resources and stories to help those in need. And some of the images that you may see during this segment may be somewhat distressing. Well, I'm pleased to say that I'm joined in the studio by the founder of Stand Up to Domestic Abuse, Rachel Williams. Rachel, thank you so much for joining me. See, looking at you now, no one would have any idea that the sort of journey that you've been through. Can you tell me a bit about your story?
Yeah, I think sadly society got a sort of blinkered view of what a victim should look like. You know, somebody from a lower demographic, you know, somebody couldn't be in a possibly powerful position or, you know, working 9 till 5. So I was with a perpetrator of abuse, not realising he was a perpetrator of abuse. And as I say, you know, if somebody slapped you on the first date, you certainly wouldn't go back for a second. I was groomed by my perpetrator, ended up in a relationship with him, realised he had a bit of a temper, violent, and the first time I can recall that was when I was 7 months pregnant, and he lifted me off the floor by my throat and he let me go when my lips turned blue, and that was actually his words after.
But how long into the relationship did he show these sort of tendencies?
I would probably say 10 months in.
Really?
Yeah, and because he always used to speak about his childhood, he came from an abusive household, which is well documented in all the reports. I did feel sorry for him, and I thought, you know, I could help him and basically change him. And I think that's what a lot of victims and survivors do, think that they can actually help their perpetrator with all these problems and we can fix them.
So when was the first time? You said about 9 months, but what was it that he did that made you think, hang on a minute?
It was the way he used to speak to me, and sometimes, you know, he'd say, right, I'll come down for food, I'll come for a meal, and he didn't show up. You know, all these little red flags that I'm more aware of now because I work in the sector, but at the time I wasn't aware of it. And then, like I said, the significant moment for the abuse for me was when I was pregnant, 7 months pregnant with his child.
And how long in were you pregnant, being with him?
I was with him. This is quite funny, actually, because perpetrators of abuse tend to do that, tend to sort of get you in their clutches. So I was probably with him only about a year before I fell pregnant for Jack.
Wow. And so, of course, you had a son.
Yeah.
During your pregnancy, what was that like?
It was all right. It was hard going sometimes because I had a 2-year-old as well who wasn't Darren's. You know, Darren always sort of looked after Darren, done things that he wanted to do. You know, he used to go training 5 times a week. You know, and when Jack came, nothing changed for him. You know, I was getting up doing the night feeds and he was still going training, doing the things he wanted to do. He worked on the door. So things for Darren didn't change, but, you know, it became very hard work because basically I had 3 children then.
Wow. So, talk to me about the situation that led to you being shot.
So, I built up the courage to finally leave him, and this was after he'd strangled me, and then he slit his wrist in front of our 16-year-old son, and that was when the fear of staying with him became greater than the fear of leaving him. So I finally decided, you know, enough's enough. I always knew there was going to be a consequence of some description, because he used to say to me, there's only one way out for you, and that's in a wooden box. He used to write things in cards like that, we're going to be together in this life and the next. Very dark, sinister cards. So I did leave him, filed for divorce for the 6-week period before the shooting. He stalked and harassed me, which wasn't picked up by my police force as stalking. You know, and he was hanging outside my place of work. You know, one time he phoned me 34 times in a day without the text messages. It was horrendous. And then I can remember then he got arrested for common assault for the strangulation, hence why I pushed to get non-fatal strangulation as a standalone charge. And he was charged with common assault. The lay magistrates lifted all the bail restrictions the day before the shooting, knowing it was all on file. He was a serial perpetrator. He threatened to kill me. He'd already had a conviction for firearms. So all the information was there for those dealing with the case, but yet they still failed us miserably. And then I went to work on the 19th of August 2011, just finished cutting a lady's hair. The shop went really dark. As I looked to the door to see what was blocking out the sunlight, and Darren was 6'7", 22 stone, a 60-inch chest. He was a big guy. And as I looked to the door, Darren was walking into the salon and he was doing this and pulling out a gun out of this bag he was carrying. And I can remember just running towards him and grappling with him for the gun. He hit me on the head with the butt of the gun, kicked the reception desk over. And it was only the fact that I'd had presence of mind to pull my knees up under my chin. He stood about 4 feet away from me, told me he loved me, pulled the trigger. My left leg took the first blast, and the second blast skimmed past my ear. He then put the gun down, I believe, to reload, and I can remember grabbing the gun, and at that point I had some sort of supernatural strength and he couldn't retrieve the gun from me. So he just absolutely pounded me with kicks, punches, everything. Then the next thing, he was gone. And then I was taken to hospital, got told later on in the evening that they'd found him. He'd taken his own life, which was a blessing. You know, I'm not going to say anything other than it was a blessing, because otherwise I would have had to have been in witness protection all my life, because there was no way he'd let me go. And then, as you said, you know, I came out of hospital on the 23rd of September 2011 on the Friday, and Jack took his life on the Monday.
Now, I don't even know how you go through that. I mean, your own journey and what you've been through, to then find out that your son has taken his own life. What does that do to you? It did destroy me, you know, but then as time goes on, time is a healer, and you don't get over it, but you learn to live with it. And I think the fire in my belly is to make change to the system, because constantly victims and survivors of domestic abuse and violence are being failed miserably by the system, hence why I've got all these petitions going at the moment around, you know, family courts, which is horrendous. I was fortunate to give that petition in to Theresa May, and that's got 220,000 signatures. But it's not just the signatures, though, Nana, it's the horror stories that go with it. People have put their own experiences of family court. A lady contacted me the other week and she told me that the magistrate in family court told her she could not have possibly been strangled because she was still here. You know, you've got comments being said like that. The other one is around taking domestic violence seriously in court. This is, I started this in March 2017. It's got 321,000 signatures on. And I started that on the back of a Judge Mansell. He had a case in his court and the victim was hit with a cricket bat, and the perpetrator tried to make her drink bleach. The judge told her she wasn't deemed vulnerable enough because she had a degree and a network of friends. He didn't give the perpetrator a custodial sentence because he had a promising cricket career ahead of him. It's just ridiculous.
So that was in 2017. I relaunched it last year on the back of all the comments that are still being said in court.
What is the purpose of where are you going to go with this?
I want all judges and magistrates to have mandatory specialist, consistent training, because they absolutely desperately need it. I've got a friend who's a magistrate, and thankfully she knows everything about domestic abuse and violence. She nearly stepped down the other week in court because her two colleagues on the bench wanted to bail a really dangerous perpetrator. And she said, if you do, she said, I will be overseeing a homicide. She said, this will be a homicide. So I know that they need the training.
Why do you think that this doesn't seem to be taken that seriously? I mean, you know, it seems to be, yeah, you'll be all right. It's not that serious. It just, you know, he's not really going to do anything. And it's usually men as perpetrators.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, we know in March 2021 that 92% of defendants in criminal court in domestic abuse cases were men. So, you know, men are the problem. You know, we do know that men do get, you know, abused by others as well. But, you know, mainly it's predominantly men. But yeah, I just think it's training. I just think there's a lack of knowledge, a lack of training. You know, the government keeps saying, you know, they're ploughing in this money into this, that and the other. You know, I've had 3 appointments made with the Home Secretary to give these petitions in. 2 with Priti Patel, which were cancelled, and 1 with Suella Braverman, again, on the 14th of February, the day before I was supposed to go up to London, you know, bring them up, it was cancelled.
That's terrible.
That shows to me that they just don't care.
So something really needs to be done about this because it's not acceptable, is it?
No, it's not.
And so it's become your life's mission to sort this out. Talk to me about your other children then, because you've got 2 other children.
No, just one other children. Well, he's not a child; he's an adult. He's 32. So he sort of keeps out of it, and he's just getting on, you know, with life. He was scarred by obviously living in that toxic environment, but thankfully, you know, Darren wasn't his father. But, you know, we miss Jack every day. But, you know, for me, this is my mission now. Until I see an end to domestic abuse and violence, I'm going to keep on keeping on.
And your injuries as well from the shooting?
Yeah.
Are you still dealing with them, or are they?
So I've got 20 grand's worth of titanium in my leg. The hospital did want to take it off, which would have been an amputation above the knee, and I told them absolutely no way. I was 39, you know, who wants to lose a limb at 39 if there's a possibility of saving it? I mean, the surgeons in Swansea Hospital were amazing, and they did manage to save my leg. But yeah, you've just got to get on with it. You can't be pitiful and powerful. You've got to choose a party.
I like that. You can't be pitiful but powerful. You to choose a party. Rachel, thank you so much for joining me. If people want to find out more or get involved with your petitions, do you have somewhere they can go?
On my website, www.sutda-2domesticabuse.org, everything's on there, Nana.
Rachel, you are an absolute inspiration. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
That, of course, is Rachel Williams. She's the founder of Stand Up to Domestic Abuse. Now, if you're having difficulty or having a difficult time, you can contact the Samaritans day or night, 365 days a year. You can call them for free on 116 123 and email them at joe@samaritans.org or visit www.samaritans.org to find your nearest branch. The details are at the bottom of the screen. So coming up is the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is it time to stop normalising obesity? Today is World Obesity Day. Nearly 1 billion of the Earth's population currently suffer with obesity, and according to reports, half of the world is on track to be obese by 2035. And with the media seeing a surge in body positivity movements, should we be praising and normalising obese people when their weight could be actively affecting their health? See you shortly after this.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 22 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time for our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is it time to stop normalising obesity? Now, today is World Obesity Day, an event designed to ensure happier, healthier and longer lives for everybody. Nearly 1 billion of the Earth's population currently suffer with obesity. And according to reports, half of the world is on track to be obese by 2035. And that is as doctors have warned that older and overweight patients are making it more difficult to clear the backlog of surgeries due to the complex nature of their procedures. And with the media seeing a surge in body positivity movements, such as ITV's Body Stories and a surplus of plus-size models, should we be praising and normalising obese people when their weight could actually be actively affecting their health? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to stop normalising obesity? Joining me now is fitness instructor and former presenter of The Big Breakfast, Jodie Bunting, author of Fast Food at 30, Line on Alley, and television personality Narinder Kaur. Right, sorry, I hope I said your name right. Litton, is it Litton or Lighton? Litton?
Litton.
Litton, thank you very much, Litton. Right, so I'm going to start with you, Jodie, the author of Fast Food at 30. Yeah, talk to me.
So, yeah, I used to be 31 stones. I used to be a fitness instructor. You know, I was body positive and I was fat and I was fit. So I think it's really hard to say, it's hard to not glamorize being overweight, but also you've got to champion these people that are trying to do something about being overweight without, you know, just pushing them into a corner and saying you're glamorizing it. If they're, you know, eating loads and saying that's a great thing, then that's not a bad thing. But as long as they're doing something in a good way, in a positive way, trying to improve their health, trying to improve their life, then I think that should be championed.
Do you think? But a lot of this body positive stuff is like, you know, I know a fitness a company that had some big models, like not just plus size, but very big models, and it's sort of showing the clothes on the models and saying that obviously this is for bigger people, and that is fine. But in a way, it sort of seems to be a slight contradiction of terms. Narinder, what do you think?
Well, I don't think it's about normalising obesity. I think it's about treating people with respect, no matter how they look. And I think there's a lot of talk around, health concerns, as if people really care whether enormous people live or die. I think it's just a smokescreen for bullying, actually. It's fat shaming and it's bullying. And research has shown time and time again that actually fat shaming and not recognising or normalising people who are overweight does the opposite effect. It's not helpful regardless, Nana.
OK, Litton, what do you think?
I used to be obese about a year ago, and I lost more than 25 kilograms. It's like it's more luggage than I can put on in a suitcase and put into the hold when I go on holiday. And it kind of crept up on me. It creeps up on people through their habits and the choices that they make over time. I think obesity is treated as a disease by a lot of people, and I think the existence of World Obesity Day, it's backed by companies that are trying to get people onto drugs, and being treated as a disease is the opposite of what should happen to obesity. Obesity is actually when somebody is carrying too much stored energy on their body. It's pretty simple. We need to get people to learn how to access that and get rid of it more. For me, I feel so much healthier having done it. I was one of those people having health problems because I accidentally became obese.
But, you know, it's not in the drug company's interest to get everybody healthy. If you're super healthy, they don't have a business. But does there not seem to be this creep of a sort of being big is beautiful, being big is bold? Well, it might be. It can also be quite dangerous. Do you think that perhaps we're not pushing that message, Jodie?
I don't know whether you saw Lizzo on the Brits when she is morbidly obese and she had 20 or 30 dancers which were also morbidly obese. This was a great example of body positivity, and not only those girls were like dancing amazing, but they were morbidly obese. So I think seeing more representation like that is good, but just in more of maybe a fairer way, a fair representation, not an extreme representation.
Yes, I did see that, and I thought they looked fabulous and all. But ultimately, it's quite an unhealthy way to be. Is it not, Narinder? I mean, you know, if you are obese in that manner, it's quite...
Who said it's unhealthy? Fat people can be healthy. They're not... The size of how you look is not an indicator of your health. Healthcare professionals actually use many other indicators, their blood pressure, cholesterol levels. Fat people can be healthy. Who said skinny people are healthy? They could be smokers and drinkers. Who are we to judge I just think it's cruel, and it is health concerns, like I said, is a smokescreen for just bullying people who don't look like you. People come in all shapes and sizes, and let's stop respecting that, and let's stop being a little bit more helpful.
Interesting that it should be referred to as bullying, when actually, in reality, what you're actually doing is explaining that actually if you are overweight, all your organs have to work a lot harder, your joints and muscles are under a lot more pressure, including the systems within your body as well, and the fat around the organs, which is quite dangerous. Sorry. Excuse me. I haven't finished. I listened to you till the end, so if you do the same for me. Thank you. So the point is that promoting, as some of these things seem to show, a positive level of body image because for those who are obese, could it have negative impacts is what we're asking. Are we right to be promoting it almost as though it's a positive thing? Listen, what do you think?
I think you can get away with quite a lot when you're younger, but you get to a certain age and you wear your system out. The problem is actually having too much weight on you, being obese, it's been proven, there's so much research into it, leads to all sorts of diseases, cardiovascular diseases, type 2 diabetes, cancers. I work with now hundreds of people who are overweight. I work with celebrities who are overweight and are being told, look, you've got to be careful not to lose too much weight. And my message to them is, how long do you want to be working for? You've got to think about, at a certain age, your body's been holding on to that energy, but it's stressing your system out. Having too much sugar in your blood, which happens to most of us, by eating the wrong kind of foods, actually what it's doing is it's wearing out your insulin system, and you don't know you've worn it out until you've worn it out. By then it's too late. Type 3 diabetes is something that we talk about nowadays. It's the other name for Alzheimer's as well. It's just based on people being allowed to do whatever they want with food, or people being told whatever they want, they can do whatever they can with food. But for me, the choices that you make every single day, you've got to be told, look, being fat at a certain age isn't going to be good for you.
Narinda's shaking her head. I mean, these are all facts. This is not bullying.
Well, I just think it's a bit cruel, and I think that you could say that about a smoker or a drinker. There's lots of people who make choices that are wrong for their health and wrong for their NHS, the burden they put on that. Why are we picking on just fat people? Why? Who are we to say, you've got to stop doing this, you must stop doing that? Why should we? Let people live. Let them live their life how they want to live.
Nobody's saying that you're saying that, but it's sort of normalising it. Jodie?
The problem is, I was from a fat family. All my family and friends were fat, and these people don't realise they are putting so much stress on their heart and all their body. So, without being horrible, they do need to be told, and they do need some guidance. And the GPs are not doing it.
Narinda, final words,
but you don't think they know that? People who are fat or morbid, they know that. They don't need you or them telling them, you are fat, you are this. They don't need that. It's unhelpful. It's an inflammatory conversation.
But do they also need positive sort of images that sort of encourage them to carry on in that direction? Because that's kind of
They need to be guided. They need to be guided out of it.
They need to be guided out of it. There'll be a lot of people sitting comfortably going, I'm not guiding out of anything. I don't blame them either. But, look, ultimately we look at this, it is World Obesity Day, so it's important that we talk about it because a lot of the world are affected by it, and it's important that we put forward different perspectives on it. Jodie, what would you say to somebody who's watching now who is, kind of overweight and wants to do something about getting fit? You're an author of Fast Food 30. Oh, no, that's Lytton. That's Lytton. Jodie, you're from The Big Breakfast. Talk to me. What do you think? Advice?
Okay. It is all about lifestyle changes and doing small things to slowly improve how you feel. One of the biggest things for me and my clients is all about sleep. If you're not feeling in a good place mentally, it's impossible to choose the right foods and actually go out and exercise. So actually focusing on your lifestyle is the first step, and then look at exercise, then look at food. But again, it is all about the bigger picture. And we mentioned earlier as well about it's so easy just to change your lifestyle. It's actually not that easy.
Not easy at all.
sticking to a plan of getting up at a certain time or eating the right foods is hard. We've got temptations all around us. We've got TV adverts all the time.
They're everywhere.
It's crazy.
They're everywhere. Listen, I've got about 20 seconds. I want to give the final word to Litton because he's got a book and stuff. So just give us just a 10-second thing of how you can encourage people if they're looking to get fit or lose weight or whatever.
It's all about learning to navigate the world. Fast Food 30 was an experiment where I ate nothing but fast food and I still lost 4 kilograms and my cholesterol dropped. You can learn to make the right choices for your body, but you have to be conscientiously engaged with your body to do so. And you have to really want to make a change and believe that actually the fat in my cells isn't good for me long term and is going to lead me towards getting the kind of diseases that we're all trying to avoid.
Thank you, Litton Ali there. He's the author of Fast Food at 30. Also, Jodie Buntin, fitness instructor and presenter, and also Narindaka, a TV personality. Thank you so much for joining me. Right, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, we'll continue with our great British debate this hour. I'm asking, is it time to stop normalising obesity? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider, also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Hi there, it is 5:33. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. New messages involving the former Health Secretary Matt Hancock show him reacting to footage of him and his colleague Gina Colandangelo caught embracing during lockdown. The leaked WhatsApp message reading how bad are the photos was sent by Matt Hancock hours after he'd discovered pictures of him breaching social distancing rules had been published. The messages also show him discussing COVID guidance in place at the time and how he should respond to the media. The correspondence is among more than 100,000 messages obtained by the Daily Telegraph. Boris Johnson may be fighting to save his political career following the findings of a report into Partygate. The Commons Privileges Committee investigating his conduct say there's significant new evidence that Johnson misled MPs over lockdown parties on several occasions, and it would have been obvious to him and his colleagues that they were breaking the rules. Mr. Johnson says it was his belief all guidance had been followed. The government's expected to announce new laws next week to crack down on small boats crossing the Channel. The legislation's expected to make asylum claims inadmissible from those who travel to the UK on small boats, as well as banning migrants from returning once they've been removed. In addition, those arriving on small boats would be removed as soon as reasonably practical to Rwanda or a safe third country. The Prime Minister's vowed to stop the boats as one of his 5 priorities. Ukrainian officials say 11 people are now known to have died after a woman's body was found this morning following Thursday's Russian missile strike in the southern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia. One child was amongst those killed in the early morning attack on a 5-storey residential building. The President, Volodymyr Zelensky, has vowed to hold Moscow accountable, saying evil will not reign in our land. TV online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now it is back to Nana.
Good afternoon, of course. Stay with us here at GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We've got a great British debate on the way. We'll be discussing loads of stuff. We're going to have a fast romp pace through the events of the week with my panel. Now, quick fire quiz. All of that on the way after this.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's coming up to 39 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is it time to stop normalising obesity? Nearly 1 billion of the Earth's population currently suffer with obesity, and according to reports, half of the world is on track to be obese by 2035. Now, that's as doctors have warned that the older and overweight patients are making it more difficult to clear the backlog of surgeries due to the complex nature of their procedures. And with the media seeing a surge in body positivity movements such as ITV's Body Stories and a surplus of plus-size models, should we be praising and normalising obese people when their weight could actually be affecting their health? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to stop normalising obesity? It's, of course, World Obesity Day as well. So let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also co-founder of The Momentum and former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. Right, Lizzie Cundy, normalising obesity. Are we being cruel? Narinda said we're being cruel.
No, we're not being cruel. 64% are overweight in this country, 29% are obese, and it's putting a massive, massive strain on the NHS. 6 billion, and they're looking that it could be up to 9.5 billion in the next coming years. What we're doing wrong is not educating people about health properly.
Really? It's out there everywhere.
It isn't, and looking at the mental health issues that go with it. Now, look, I'm someone that's had an eating disorder.
Really?
I suffered, and people didn't look at the mental side. They just watched what you eat, or in my case, what I didn't eat. And it is the mental concerns. And that is where the money should be put into, looking at the mental issues, why people are obese. I know there are many other reasons, it might be genetics, but sadly with obesity, you have a lot of knock-on other illnesses from it, from heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and it is a real huge worry, plus a massive strain on our NHS.
James.
Obesity is a big problem. It's a problem for people's health, exactly as you're saying, but it isn't going up because the ITV has a show called Body Positivity or whatever. It's going up because...
Well, no, we're not specifically saying that, but what we're talking about is we're normalising it in a way.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that's normalised is our food system, which stuffs some people with unhealthy food, and it starves about 1 in 10 people in the world.
Feeds them with its hands, or do they feed themselves?
No, so if...
Sorry, somebody's putting their food in their mouths. And it's
okay, fine, but if you're offered if the system creates healthy food, then people will be healthier and they will eat better. If you're offered unhealthy food, then you're more likely to be unhealthy. So if food is more likely to be processed with high fructose corn syrup and all of this stuff, which is very unhealthy.
Well, it depends what food you buy.
Right, but that is what is making the obesity numbers go up. The reason why obesity is going up is because people are eating unhealthy food, because the majority of food that is on offer to people is unhealtly. We have.
But it's all. Sadly,
the nutritious content of food is decreasing. Yes, it is.
Unhealthy, James. Sadly, unhealthy food is cheaper to eat, and that is what people think, and that's why they go for the unhealthy options. Right. But I really do think, like on fast food, they should actually have what fat and what it can do to you in some way. No, but they do on cigarettes. Yeah, they could do it on fast food. I really think we need to do more, and we need to look at the mental issues why people are obese.
That's more the point. But people don't care. If something says that it's 1,000 calories, I don't even look at the calories. I look at the food and go, "Oh, that looks good. I'll have that."
Well, I think if people saw the dangers and that their life, you know, you could lose your life from being obese. It's a danger, and it's costing the NHS.
But what about the normalisation of it? Because obviously there's body positivity and things like that. Love yourself is a big, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying love yourself. But do you think we're sort of kind of normalising something that's actually quite dangerous for people?
Well, it can be, yes, but just because you're overweight or fat doesn't mean you're unhealthy. Like, I could be really skinny and still be unhealthy. It's a bigger issue.
But nobody's saying that.
No, but yeah, I do think that I just don't like the fact with some trend suddenly, and everyone's saying, "Oh, it's so cool to be obese." No, it's not actually. Your health is in danger, and as we said, massive strain on the NHS. 29% of people in this country are obese.
Are people saying it's cool to be obese, though? Is that...
Well, they're on the front of Vogue. We've just talked about the pop star, who's and everyone was extremely overweight, whether to say obese or not. But
I think if we want to reduce obesity, which I think we all do, and that is a good thing, I don't think particularly focusing on how positive people view obesity, because I think the overwhelming majority of people don't think that it's a good thing.
But it does feel like there are campaigns
and we should be looking at what government policies would make people's lives healthier. We're talking about health, right? Obesity is a health problem. Exactly. It has negative health impacts, like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, all the stuff that you were talking about. So we should be talking about what government policies will make people have healthier lives. What will make them help them do more exercise, have more time to cook and cook healthy food, make good choices about what food comes in.
That's all very well. No, that's all very well. And the government do stuff like that as well. But do you think that the sort of campaigns that we see are actually helpful in promoting this sort of positive vision of obesity? Because I see lots of things that are promoting it's great to be overweight, and it's a great. And listen, I'm not bothered whether someone is overweight or slim. It's not me to make a personal judgment, but the reality of it is very different. The reality of being overweight is actually the dangers for your health.
Exactly. And we all come in different shapes and sizes. That's what makes the world, a fun place. We don't all be the same. But the fact is, a healthy lifestyle, self-worth. And let's not promote someone that is obese, because it isn't healthy.
Oh, you can promote them, of course, but just the notion that being obese is actually a healthy thing.
Correct.
Because, of course, with the pandemic as well, that was one of the biggest. I mean, I remember saying to one girl, she said, "Oh, I'm not going to have the vaccine." And I was an advocate for the vaccine. So I said, well, you've got all the things there that could suggest that you may be a bad candidate if you caught the disease. And she said, "There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me." She said, "I haven't got this, I haven't got that." And she didn't even see obesity as almost like an illness.
Yeah, but now it's really hard because we're not allowed to say certain words. I can't. Someone can say to me, "I bet I was too skinny," but I couldn't say, "Oh, you're looking fat." We can't say those words because people are we're so worried we're going to offend someone.
I don't think I would say that to anybody anyway, because I just think that's a bit cruel.
Well, no, but if you're trying to help someone and trying to get them on a healthier lifestyle,
but you go about it a nice way. Like if you've got a friend who's put on lots of weight and you're worried that they might have health impacts, you might have like a quiet word and try to do something helpful. You're not going to point at them and say...
Well, no, I'm not going to point. No, of course I'm not. But if you're trying to help and have a healthier lifestyle, but that's not advertise and glamorise being obese.
Well, I used to be a trainer and I used to train people, and obviously it didn't go well for me. I was too honest. Right, well, this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome one of our great British voices, your opportunity to be on the show. Tell us what you think about the topics we're discussing. Where should we go? Should we go to Bedford?
Oh, I love it in Bedford.
Lee's a personal trainer. Let's go to Bedford. Lee Webb, you're the perfect person to talk to about this obesity thing. Do you feel that there's a lot of normalisation of obesity?
I think there's too much normalisation with obesity, and it's a cool thing to be at the moment with a lot of these magazines and fashion houses using obese people. Now, I'm happy if somebody is obese and they're happy with being obese. I've got no issue with that. I'm not going to, sort of like insult them or anything like that. But obesity does increase your risk from heart disease. It increases your risk from type 2 diabetes. Also increases your risk from certain cancers. And believe me, that's a journey that you don't want to go down, is the cancer route. And also the mental health side of things. Physical health supports good mental health. You usually see healthy people, they normally got good mental health. Obese people don't tend to have good mental health. So we've got to look at that as well, the mental health side of it. And also, when was the last time you see an 8-year-old obese person? You don't see them because they don't last that long. So their life expectancy is less. And it just amazes me that we've been hiding behind sofas with the COVID pandemic for 2 years, staying indoors, protecting everybody else's health and our own health, supposedly. And yet we're not, as a nation, doing anything to reduce the obesity levels in this country.
Well, Lee Webb, thank you so much. He's a personal trainer as well, Bedford trainer. Thank you so much for your thoughts as it's World Obesity Day today. Now, as we reported earlier this hour, Prince Harry has been speaking with a trauma expert on a live stream and taking part in a Q&A with the public. Let's discuss this with our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, who I believe may have well been listening to it. Cameron, talk to me about it. What's he been saying?
Nana, yes, I am indeed listening to it still. It's been going on for roughly 45 minutes so far, another 15 minutes to go. And the best way I can describe it is a bit of a therapy session in itself. Of course, it is Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, on a live stream in this living room-like situation for those listening on radio and who haven't seen the pictures yet, with a fireplace, comfy sofas, speaking to a Dr. Gabor Mate. And a lot of it all centres around trauma and this idea of Prince Harry's childhood and how that has kind of affected him in later life. Prince Harry at one point claims that he was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress by a therapist, which I don't believe we have heard before in quite so blunt terms. He also says that the reason he had written his memoir, Spare, which is the whole point of this live stream in the first place, to promote his book. If you wanted a ticket for this live stream, you had to pay £17 for the privilege and get a copy of his book. He said the reason he wrote the book, he does not and has never looked for sympathy in writing this book.
Well,
one of the criticisms of Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex.
But he wanted an apology.
Sorry, go on, Nana.
But he wanted an apology. And that's somebody saying sorry is like you're asking for sympathy, aren't you? And it just seems a bit of an odd thing for him to say.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? In the promotion... Yeah, well, in the promotional interviews he gave for this book memoir, Spare, he did say he was the ball was in the royal family's court in terms of reaching out to perhaps apologise for the experiences he had had growing up as members of the royal family. Buckingham Palace clearly haven't commented on that, but I'll keep you updated with the rest of the live stream, and any more lines, I'll bring it straight to you now.
Thank you so much, Cameron. Cameron Walker there, listening to Prince Harry whinging, I don't know what it is, but he wants to, I don't know. Right, anyway, stay with us. It's time for the quickfire quiz this week, the part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories hitting the headlines right now. I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, also co-founder of Momentum and former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. Lizzie, press your buzzer, please. James, your buzzer. Lovely. Question 1, please play along at home. A man has caused quite a stir after making an appearance in a small Chinese village. But why? Was it A, don't buzz until I've finished, he was missing for 20 years, B, he was previously thought to have been cremated, or C, he was a celebrity from the 90s? Lizzie Cundy.
I'm going for B.
You're going for B. What do you think, James?
Yeah, it's B.
Is it B?
I think so.
The answer is B. He was previously thought to have been cremated. A different body was misidentified as him at the scene of a car accident. Oh, God. Right, question 2. This is true or false?
I've got to be faster.
All right. Britain's strictest pub has these 5 rules. No smoking, no credit cards, no mobile phones, no cameras, and no backpackers. Well, nobody's pressed the button.
Well,
Lizzie Cundy.
True, yeah, it's all of them, I think.
You didn't even press your buzzer, James.
Well, OK.
You
But no, I think it wouldn't say no backpackers. I think it would say the rest of it.
No, they won't.
got
They've got not enough money.
True, the canny man pub in
Canny
Edinburgh is
man.
considered the strictest in Britain. James, would you have a drink at that pub?
Yeah, no phone. Great.
No way would I
Would you have a
drink at that pub.
drink, not a phone?
No, but it said no phones. I think a pub with no phone sounds quite nice. Yeah, I'll go for
No,
a
I
drink.
love my phone at a pub.
No, I love my phone at a pub.
Instagramming pictures of myself
Look at
drinking my
me now,
pint.
darling.
Look at me now.
Right, question 3. The Royal Mail has stopped delivering to one street in Liverpool. But why? Is it A, a postman was attacked by a dog, B, the street was filled with too much trash, or C, the crime rate is too high on that single street? James?
Dog.
Which one's that?
A.
A, he said A. What do you think, Lizzie?
I think it's C, because there's so much crime. It's lawless Britain at the minute.
It was actually A.
Oh,
Very
there we
good.
go. Well
done.
done.
You
James got a point.
James. A postman was attacked by a dog.
Really?
The street is considered a safety risk, so no Royal Mail workers want to enter that road. Oh, don't worry about it. Probably nobody using Royal Mail soon anyway. Right, question 4. A woman in London has made it her mission to eat a scone at every National Trust in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. But how many scones did she eat? Closest answer wins. Lizzie?
Oh, I'd say about 100.
100?
No, it's got to be more. 500. National Trust.
Seriously?
Yeah, there's loads of National Trust.
I think it's my mother that did this, by the way.
How many-
She loves us.
What did you say, Lizzie?
I said 100.
Lizzie wins.
Lizzie wins. It's 244.
Oh.
Yes, her journey has taken her over 10 years. Right, and final question, question 5. Brooklyn Beckham was criticised this week for sharing his pasta recipe, but why? Was it A, he cooked it for way too long, B, he used the wrong pasta and sauce, and C, he used added sugar instead of salt? James?
C.
He added sugar instead of salt.
Yeah.
Let's see if you're right. No.
I was going to say B, but you didn't ask me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was
soggy. It should be al dente.
He used the wrong pasta and sauce.
And,
What pasta and sauce did he use?
I don't know.
Not
Many people
Aldo
criticised
Zilli's,
him.
my friend. He's very cross. He's on the phone earlier. He should have used his sauce.
Well, look, many people criticised him for getting the recipe completely wrong. What's your favourite thing to cook, Lizzie?
Oh, I love a roast chicken. I'm very good at roasts. And a Thai curry.
Oh, I love Thai green curry.
Yeah.
What about you, James?
I like chicken stir fry.
Chicken stir fry. You good at it? Is that your signature dish?
I can do that fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
bring some in next time.
Yeah, all right.
If we
Bring in some Tupperware.
If we invite you back. Well, listen, on today's show, we've been asking, are Matt Hancock's leaked messages in the public interest? And according to our Twitter poll, 71% of you say yes, wow, and only 29% of you say no. I'm going to say a huge thank you to my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Thank you very much, Lizzie.
Thank you, Nana.
And also co-founder of Momentum and former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. James, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It wasn't that bad, was it?
No, not at all.
All right, roast between two thorns, I say, or the other way
Thorn
around.
between two roses. Well, listen, thank you so much for you at home, for your company as well. I'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. to discuss the top stories with broadcaster and author Christine Hamilton, also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. I'll leave you with the weather. Don't forget, you can also download the show or stream us live on YouTube. I'll see you soon. Enjoy your day. Tune in at 4 tomorrow.
Hello there, I'm Craig Snow and here's your latest forecast from the Met Office. Well, as we go through the next few days, although this weekend will be rather cloudy and dry, next week is certainly turning a good deal colder with the risk of some snow for some of us. Out there at the moment, we've still got this area of high pressure firmly in charge across the country. This cold front will just be a focus of some showers across some eastern and northern parts of the UK. But for most of us, as we end Saturday, it's going to be dry but rather cloudy, with the best of any clear skies up across western Scotland. Later on in the night, we will start to see some wintry showers affecting the very far north of Scotland. But for many, no real problems with temperatures, no lower than around 3 to 4 degrees for a lot of the country. So Sunday for England and Wales, a very similar day to Saturday. Plenty of cloud around, risk of some showers across eastern parts of the country. For Scotland and Northern Ireland, I'm hopeful we will see a little bit more in the way of brightness compared to Saturday, but also the risk of some showers, and these showers once again will be wintry, especially across the high ground. Temperatures on Sunday at best around 8 to 9 degrees, but factor in the wind, it will still be feeling pretty cold if you are out and about. Into Sunday evening, across the north, an increase in risk of some showers, especially across Scotland, where these will turn increasingly to sleet and snow, even at lower levels, with the risk of some ice too. So do take some extra care if you are out and about early on Monday. Could just see some disruption courtesy of that snow. Further south, a colder night than Saturday night, maybe a touch of frost in a few spots where we do see the skies remain clearest. And then as we go into Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, it turns even colder still across the UK. Risk of some snow, chiefly across the high ground at first. But as we go into middle of the week, we may even see some snow moving into the south too. But you can keep an eye on all the information through the warnings on the Met Office website.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join